Dambusters Lancaster. See the first half of the build right here on Garage Stuff. Hi there, I'm Gary, welcome to my channel, welcome back if you've been here before. So today I am indeed starting the build of this, the Avro Lancaster B3 Special, the Dambusters aircraft in 1/72nd scale from AIRFIX. So today I'll be taking it from opening up the box all the way through to having a fairly much completed fuselage and wing section, enough to start painting at least. In the next video I'll be painting the aircraft, I'll be doing all the detailing, adding the bombs, turrets and so on and so forth, and finishing up the kit with a bit of weathering and panel washing. If you like the show, and I hope you do, please remember, Imperial thumbs up on the like button below, and if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all the future videos as they come out, including the second half of this build. And if you really like what you see, do please remember you can give more concrete support through super thanks, through becoming a channel member, or joining any of my online partner programs, one of which is the AIRFIX online store. If you click on the link in the box below and you then go on to buy anything at all on the AIRFIX online store, then AIRFIX, at no extra cost to you, will make a small donation to this channel, which is nice. So let's crack on then and start building this 1/72nd scale Avro Lancaster Dambusters from AIRFIX.
Right, first job on our Dambusters Lancaster is to drill out these holes here, these 4 holes. These are in the floor of the cabin or the roof of the bomb bay, depending on your point of view. This is a 1mm drill bit. The instructions also say to remove this. I presume it's a rack mounting structure or something like that. Remember, this is the roof of the bomb bay, and this part here is supposed to come off. So what I've done is I've cut most of it off using this chisel blade, and then just sand down what's left. Then there's a piece for the end of each bomb bay. The front, this is the front wall. There's a piece for the back wall as well. Just try and make sure these go at right angles to the floor. What I remember from doing the Mark II blank last year, which is pretty much exactly the same as the Mark III or Mark I, except it has different engines, is that the fit of the spar was pretty tight because of the mould lines. These things are moulded in 2 halves, and there's a mould line that runs along the whole of each of these long edges. You just need to knock those down with a bit of sandpaper or a sanding stick, just so that they disappear, and then it'll be easy enough to get them through the cockpit. You can always check with the cockpit pieces that it's going to move in okay, but it's going to sort of go through the gap okay, but it's not going to be loose as well. You don't want it loose, so just check till it just goes in the gaps fine and is secure and stable. Right, now the spars are going to go onto the main floor. The rear spar, this one is the one with all the pipe work here, so you don't have to get them confused. Would have been nice if they had different sized pegs actually, but anyway. So the rear spar goes in there, and the front spar goes in here, like that. Seat comes in 2 parts, the back and the base. The base just slots into the back like so. While the seat is setting up to dry, I'm going to put the control column in, like so. Then on the back of the instrument panel we need to put the rudder bar assembly, like this. And when everything's dried you can put in the seat. It sits on these pegs on the floor, like so. Then the pilot's seat assembly can go in to the main cockpit floor, like so. We've put the instruments decal onto the instrument panel, and so we can fit that into the floor as well, and that leans up against this little notch in the corner here, like so. I'll spread the inside of the cockpit or cabin of the aircraft with interior green, and the front section and the bomb bay section in black. This bit has to be picked out in black. I believe this bit does too, maybe even these cables. There's some glass that needs to go in as well. So that's what I'll do next. Oh, and the instructions say these little knobs here, these are for locating the bomb doors. They've got to come off because the bomb doors are different on this aircraft. So I've painted these panels black, and when they're dry I'm going to give them a bit of a quick dry brush with some white just to bring out the details. I've also done a black wash on these ribs here. So what I've done is I've gone over them with water first, and then just sort of dabs the wash into the corners here, and it's just sort of flowed along, just to help it out a bit. Don't make them too dirty, because remember, a lot of these aircraft, it was their first mission after leaving the manufacturers or the conversions, so they're going to be pretty clean. There's just two holes here and here we need to drill out. Those are with a 1mm drill. We can start on the huge number of windows as well. So for each thing you lay in the strip and just tap sort of judiciously with bits of extra thin, and it will hold. And just go all the way along the aircraft doing the same thing. Don't forget this little window at the front. Now, if you've cleaned up these slots for the spars and made sure the spars don't have any mould marks on, these slots may well have just a tiny bit of mould marks on them, so they need to be cleaned up properly. Test fit, dry fit all the time. That's my motto. If you have done that, then the spars will slide into place, like so. These pieces will fit into the cabin here, and your instrument panel will slot into place at the front, as it all should. Very nice too. As this piece goes in here, it just goes into a tiny little hole under the window and sits against the bottom of the frame. This is essentially the bomb sight. The regular bomb sight, of course, not the Dambusters bomb sight, which was either a piece of wood with some nails in it or a piece of string and pulled taut, and which gave you the angle, depending on whose account you believe. We're going to start putting together the navigator's table now with these two pieces. We're going to paint this interior green, and there'll be some radio things on the back there. Okay, you just want to very carefully open up the hole here. This is going to be for the forward of the two lamps that used to sort of converge to give them an accurate feel for their altitude over the water. So just, you know what, you can just leave it like that. Leave it just so you know where it is, basically. You notice I haven't actually set this in yet. I want there to be a little, I'm not too bothered about it moving around at the moment because I want everything to set together. I don't want to set this and maybe sort of tug it too far round and then have to fiddle around with the other side. So the spars are absolute, like they have to be where they are, and those are glued in. Everything else up at the front here is ready to be sort of messed around with and fiddled with to get it to fit nicely when the two halves go together. In the starboard side we have this sort of seat here for the presumed navigator, flight engineer, flight engineer, it's a flight engineer, isn't it? Co-pilot, flight engineer, call it what you like. Because navigator's got his own table, which is what we've been building. Anyway, that's going to get painted leather on the top and black on the struts there. Now the instructions don't say to do it, but I'm going to because it looks weird. I'm going to paint this black. There's going to be some dials that go on there. I think it's just going to look better in black. I might pick out these two bits in black as well, and then of course do the a bit of what they call it, panel wash in here just to darken that down again a bit, and then just a tiny little bit of dry brushing on the inside of these ribs to make them stand up a bit. That's the nav table. Has supports at this end, so, and then this chair sits on the side there. I'm going to actually put it together in the plane. So I put the end in here first with the tabletop, fitted the this end panel here into the side properly, then attached this as the third leg and glued it into place to make it all secure. So all I need to do now is put the decal for the map here and the decal for the radio gear in there, and that will be this side of the cockpit complete. Because this is Joe McCarthy's plane I'm making of the two, this had the belly gun position. The other aircraft, Easy, Bob Barlow's plane, didn't have this gun. So there'll be a blanking plate there for it. The mid-upper was taken off of the Dambuster aircraft, so there's a blanking plate that goes in for that as well. There we go, up there. And finally, at the back of the plane, there are these signal lights that need to go in. So now we can slot the two halves together. The spars go through their allocated places and the fuselage goes together. I'll just tape this up for the moment and then we'll start putting some extra thin in all the joints. So there it is, leave that alone and we'll, in fact, leave it overnight I think, and we'll get back to it in the morning. These are the undercarriage bay structures. These go in the inner engine nacelles, so they just have to plug into these holes in the spars. And can be a little stiff, so you may have to just tidy up some of these holes in the spars a bit. There we go, that's got in. There we go. So that goes in like that. Then there's 2 intermediate ribs, or whatever you want to call them. I'll get told off for calling them ribs. There's 2 intermediate other bits, and then there's another sort of structural section goes in at the end. Just put them all in, glue them up, tape it up to set, everything's good. So that's all the spar sections assembled, a bit of tape around to keep it clamped together. Let it set. Now the instructions suggest when we're putting the wing on that we put the top surface on first and get that lined up and fitted with the bay. And I think this is an excellent idea because it means you're going to get a really nice fit on that inner edge of the wing if we do it this way. If we do it this way and then sort out the lower wing come what may, then the top surface, which is going to be the one we look at most, is going to be perfect. The bottom surface, if it needs filling or if it needs filing down, we can deal with it. It's going to be painted black anyway, so it's not so critical, but it's brilliant idea to do it this way round. Under the port wing, you have this pair of lamps. They go in, we'll just hold those in with a little bit of extra thin cement, and then we must remember to paint the back of them in chrome or silver or something to make them nice and reflective. Then the lower part of the wing can go on. It slits over the top like this, connects up. We'll tape all this up and glue it into place. Right, slight issue with the instructions here is on the tailplane, the horizontal stabiliser, if you will. Now on the instructions it says B8 and B9 go together, and A6 and A7 here go together. But if you look at B8 and B9, this is B8 and B9, and you'll notice they both have holes for locating pins. So although they do go together, they will sort of line up together, but you've got to do all the alignment and it doesn't feel right. However, if we look at A6 and A7, and to make sure I've got them right, this is still on the sprue, which they call sprue A, and this is 6 and 7 here, 6 and 7. You'll notice both of them have got pins to fit into those holes. So they've made a bit of a mistake with the numbering there. So what I've got here is A6 and B8 to go together as one part. And you'll see they've got this staggered set of tabs here. The other 2 parts are opposite stagger and they'll go into those slots. So just A6 and B8 here, and the other half of the tail gear here is A7 and B9. Yeah, there you go. So tabs will slot together like this inside the aircraft. And when the A6 and B8 pair have dried, you can put on the B10 elevator, like so. Then when everything's dried, you can put the tail sections in. Now, they are very, very snug fitting. So if you've put in on any primer, like I always do, I do a basic prime just when putting things together. It helps in very many stages of the construction. You'll probably want to sand that off for these pieces going in because they are a very snug fit, which is good, which is actually really good. And there are 2 tiny little holes in the fuselage here for the elevator hinge to go into. make sure those are all lined up and nice and snug, and it's a really tight fit, but a very good one. Okay, going to start with the engine nacelle construction now, and this is just the outlet ramp for the radiator we put together first. Then the outlet ramp goes into the nacelle like so. The skin of the ramp just catches at the back of this outlet vent on the bottom of the nacelle, like that. Yeah, like that. And then we can join the two halves of the nacelle together. Like so. Then the radiator flap goes into place here. Like so. Then these exhaust shields go over here, over where the exhaust would be. So like so. Now you can see just here there's this little thing that sticks out, bit that sticks out. You just want the front edge of this cowling to go over that. That defines the front edge and also the position up here. And then it just sort of runs kind of parallel to this seam here. And just use some extra thin to put that in place. Then there's these couple of air scoops, one on each side, just slot into these holes here, like so. Then when that's all done, what I like to do is label the nacelle so I know this is now starboard outer, for example. The inner engine nacelles are pretty much the same, except they're quite a lot longer. This one really was quite badly bent. In fact, this part here was broken. Don't know if that was in the packaging, in the opening, I don't know. So that's going to have to be sort of straightened out. And there's an insert here, the front, well, it's like the rear firewall, front wall of the engine bay. That goes in on each side as well. But otherwise, they're pretty much identical. And we can put the outer nacelles on as well at the same time. Now on the outer engine parts, I'm putting in these covers. Now for the inner engines here, we're going to need access to this to put the undercarriage in later. So you can either put the main strut of the undercarriage in and just look after it when you're doing everything else, but I'm not that good at doing things like that, so what I'm going to do is just put the cover in temporarily, do all this. So what I'm going to do is put the cover up here temporarily, probably use some, I don't know, some PVA or something, just a couple of spots of PVA to hold it in place. Then I can do all the spraying I need to do, or the camouflage and all the rest of it. Then when that's all done, I can pop those off and I can put the main struts of the undercarriage in later on. So that's what I'm going to do. So this fillet goes in here. And so it clips in at the front. Let's see if we can do that better. Let's clip it in at the front end first, shall we? And then fit it at the back. There we go. It's like an aerodynamic cover for the rear of the bomb bay. Then the bomb's motor assembly is put together in two halves like this, and it goes into the 4 holes we drilled in the bomb bay right near the beginning of the build. There's this half of a bomb cover, the bomb bay cover here at the front, and the idea is this provides an aerodynamic fairing for where the bomb is, but it must have the little drive shaft for the bomb sticking out as well. So it sticks out the side. Let's just adjust a few things for you here. That's still not quite right. You can see the little drive axle there for the bomb mechanism, and the drive motor is tucked away in here. So just need to make sure that that's pushed over enough that the drive axle comes out here, and that these panels all line up properly with the rest of the bomb bay. And once that's in place, the other half of the forward fairing can go on, and it just needs to line up with the edge of the bomb bay and of course with the front of the other fairing. So if you put a little high to begin with, and we can just nudge it down into place gently, like so. I'll just use a bit of tape there to hold the ends in place and leave it to set up. I started putting the transparencies on, and they all have masks because there's a lot of them, and I'm going to be spraying the kit. I've done the nose mask, side windows and so on and so forth. I've done the main canopy as well. On the instructions with the mask it says to do these first, but then if you do that, then the mask and all that's going to be on the inside of the cockpit. So what I'm going to do is put the main cockpit thing on first, canopy on first, then when that's set, then just mask around the outside, paint it over with masking fluid, and then that'll be fine. Now if you're making the kit with, and you want the propellers to turn, you won't be doing this now, you'll be doing this later, but I'm not bothered about turning props. I just want to have as much of the kit in place as I can to start doing the spraying. So I'm putting in the front end of the engine nacelles complete with the propeller shaft into the engines. The masking set I got from Edward includes 3 strips of paper that sort of go round the astrodome here, the observer's dome. But as I've put the front canopy on top already, what I've done is I've laid the strips down at the bottom like this. Then the spare length of strip I've put across the top here, so that when we spray we get that line of the frame at the back there. Otherwise you'd have to just not mask the whole lot out and it wouldn't show through. So that frame will come through, and there's enough paper there to form that edge. I just need to cover all these blank bits with masking fluid. And finally, before I start spraying this thing, I need to put in this fillet here that goes in front of the rear guns. It's a bit of a faff, but it does go in. There we go. So I'm also putting in the front fillet there that goes behind the front turret. Now I'm using just a bit of PVA to hold that in place because it will have to come off when we put the front turret in. But I just want it there so it gets the same sort of coat of colour as the rest of the aircraft, and the demarcation lines between the upper and lower part of the camouflage are the same. Other bits of preparation, I've just cut the frames from around the tailplane and rudder sections. I'm going to spray those separately. It's just going to make it a lot easier to do the camouflage on the tailplanes. So spray those separately, do the decals, and then they can all go on right at the very end. What I'm also going to do now is make the main wheels. As usual, these things come in halves. They sit nice and snug together, a bit of extra clear cement, extra thin cement rather. around the edge, and those will be fine. And I'll leave these on for spraying.
There we go then. It's going together pretty well altogether. There's bits that are fitting really well indeed, and there's other bits that maybe aren't fitting quite so well or haven't paid enough attention to or whatever. And there's a couple of bits that were broken and misformed in the packaging. So, you know, we've got over all of those problems, fortunately. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, please do come back for the second half, which is the painting and the final detailing, adding the weapons, turrets, markings, and finishing off the paint as well. If you want to know when that's made available, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell, and you will be notified of all my future videos as and when they turn up on the channel. And of course, if you liked anything you see on my channel, please do give them the imperial thumbs up on the like button below. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye now.